Hey, thanks for coming back to the channel. I'm out and about in my urban assault vehicle this morning, but I had some stuff I really needed to get off my chest, and it regards the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and the fact that the prosecution, during their closing arguments, said the quiet words out loud. They said what anti-gun people and snowflakes and weak people have been suggesting for a long time. There were two comments made during closing arguments by the prosecution. First was that, you know how we would say you don't bring a knife to a gunfight, right? The prosecution turned that around and said it's a crime to bring a gun to a fist fight, right? So they tried to characterize what was happening with Kyle Rittenhouse as just a simple fist fight. And you don't bring a gun to a fist fight. I'm going to come back to this thinking. The second comment, which really set me off from the prosecution, was sometimes you have to just take the beating. What? In other words, you should not defend yourself. If you're the weaker person and you're being ganged up on, you should just take the beating, but never bring greater ability to defend yourself from serious bodily injury or death. The assumption is a fist fight is just a fist fight. If somebody jumps you, they're just jumping you. They're not going to kill you. Just take the beat down. I mean, my brain exploded because I have a couple of videos on this idea that real men don't use guns. So you can go back and look at some of my videos on that. But at least they brought the truth out. And that's the reason that they don't want you and I to be armed so that we can defend ourselves against brute force, bullying force from anywhere that we are. And we have a right to be in a counter-protest. We have a right to be in a protest with our firearms. We have a right to do that. That doesn't mean we have a right to use our firearms to intimidate other people. And what I mean by that is point the barrel at somebody, right? Because now that's brandishing and that's a threat and that's a felony almost everywhere. But we have a right to have the ability to protect ourselves, and we have a right to make sure everyone around us knows that, right? So that armed society is a polite society, right? But to come out and say that in a trial, that is the expectation, that if you're getting beat down, if you're a woman and you're getting raped, just relax and enjoy it. Don't shoot anybody. Don't bring a gun or a knife to defend yourself. It's just a rape, right? It's just a beat down. Just take it. What the implication of that is that we can weaponize bullies, which is what happened in Kenosha and a bunch of other places where anarchists go there for the purpose of breaking shit, putting things on fire, and basically, fucking things up and hurting people if they can. They go there for that purpose, and they have been weaponized and organized to do that. So our choice as armed citizens is to not exercise our First Amendment right because we would be intimidated because there might be those nasty anarchist people who might come and try to get in our face and hurt us, right? Which then chills our ability to use our free speech. So if there are people who are intimidated or feel intimidated because they see an armed person, all that means to me is that they are seeing an armed potential victim that is no longer a potential victim, right? Now I'll go back to, everybody who chased Rittenhouse saw that he had a long gun. Anyone who chased him, anyone who chases anyone that has a long gun is just brain dead. But let me come back to the meaning of this. Sometimes you just have to take the beating. That is the mindset of liberal prosecutors everywhere in some of these blue states and blue cities. Because the consequence of you and I being armed while exercising our First Amendment right or while protecting others or property, right? Now, let me talk about this protecting property thing. In almost every state, with the exception of maybe Texas, right, you cannot use deadly force to protect property. You can only use deadly force to protect yourself. Now, if you are standing sentry in protecting property, and then someone attacks you, now you can use deadly force to protect yourself, because you're now protecting yourself, not the property. So keep that in mind. You are not there to use deadly force to protect anyone's property. I like to call it the Koreatown Protocol. If you remember the Rodney King riots, and the Koreans are up on the roofs of their buildings with their guns. And by the way, they shot people. No one was charged. Nothing hit the news. But the crowd got the message and went around Koreatown because they didn't want to mess with the Koreans. Because the Koreans, they're just going to shoot you. Okay? But the caution is, you cannot use deadly force to protect the property, only yourself. Now, if you are standing guard and someone tries to hurt you while you're standing guard, then you can use deadly force to protect yourself, right? You don't have to take the beating. You don't have to take the beating, right? And yes, bring a gun to a fist fight, please. So now that the secret is out, now that we know that is what they want to do, they want to protect their weaponized anarchists that are going to these events, because now what's going to start happening, whether Kyle Rittenhouse, I don't think he's going to be found guilty. I think what's going to happen there will either be a mistrial without prejudice, which means he could try it again and he will be found not guilty for sure, or there will be a hung jury. I don't quite understand what how a hung jury happens after that, but those are the two most probable things right now, and that's just me not being an attorney, just thinking through some things. But as more of these protests and counter-protests happen, you will have armed camps facing off against each other. Now, let me tell you what I've said to people. If I'm standing sentry guarding someone's property or guarding them, I'm going to have a long gun and I'm going to be at the low ready, right? Low ready. Finger off the trigger, safety off. Round chamber. Why? Because I'm going to be looking at the crowd, and the first person and I don't care if they're armed or not, but the person who raises their barrel at me is going to fail the room temperature test, because I'm going to light them up. Now, what about the person that has the Molotov cocktail? Well, first of all, you light a Molotov cocktail, you need to be getting rid of it really fast, right? So if you see a Molotov cocktail lit, you need to pay attention, right? And as soon as I see the person go to the ready throw position, my barrel is going to come up and I'm going to light them up. Why? Because they're They are threatening deadly force. I don't know if you've ever been burned up or not. I've never, but I don't want to either. So those are two examples. Two examples. I'm going to prevent someone from harming me or someone else. Right? So the secret is out. The cat's out of the bag, or whatever other metaphor you want to use. And so now we know that the left and the anarchists are trying to protect their weaponized people from us, from being hurt while they're doing stupid stuff. So we'll see. And we've got the Supreme Court coming up, and that's primary reason that the left and liberal cities are terrified, because they can't put these forces out. This stupid ass dude in New York, Black Lives Matter chapter, stands up and says, you know, if you reactivate one of the most effective police units in New York City, we are going to burn the city down. Well, guess what's going to happen? If the Supreme Court says citizens have a right to be armed, guess who's going to be shooting at Black Lives Matter? And if the Black Lives Matter people say, well, we're going to go armed, and the first time they raise their barrel at somebody, they're going to get lit up. So you don't want to be the first one. You don't want to be the first one to target someone, but you want to end the fight. So with that, I know I rambled just a bit, but I had to get this out there because the secret is out. Share, have the conversations with people, because that's what this is all about. So, as always, thanks for watching, and carry on.